Teen mom's Briana DeJesus says she wants her tubes tied to avoid creating more broken homes. Hello guys, I am Georgia. To you, welcome back to my channel. Please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon for latest news updates. Briana DeJesus has never been one to shy away from raw truth. Known best for her appearances on MTV's Teen Mom franchise, she has lived the majority of her adult life in the public eye, warts and all. Recently, she made headlines again, but not for the usual reasons tied to on-screen drama or co-parenting conflicts. This time, the conversation turned introspective, even a bit heartbreaking. DeJesus shared a vulnerable desire to get her tubes tied, not out of hate for motherhood, but out of love for her children, and a determination to end a cycle she feels trapped in, the creation of what she calls broken homes. That phrase, broken homes, carries a lot of weight. It echoes generations of pain, loss, failed relationships, and children left to navigate complicated family structures. It's also a term that's fallen out of favor in some circles, criticized for its judgmental tone. But for Briana, it isn't about stigma, it's about the reality she lives every day. She's raising children in a world that is fragmented, where the promise of a traditional family unit has dissolved into separate households, shared custody, and emotional patchwork. Her words aren't an indictment, they're a reflection. A decision rooted not in despair, but in hard-won clarity. Motherhood, for many women, is a sacred calling. For others, it's a path taken too young, too unexpectedly, and under immense pressure. Briana DeJesus entered motherhood as a teenager, on national television, with millions watching her fumble, fall, and rise. Her journey was far from linear. It was chaotic, emotional, and at times visibly overwhelming. She has faced criticism for her parenting decisions, relationships, and public feuds. But throughout it all, one thing has remained constant: her love for her daughters. Still, love isn't always enough to shield children from the realities of family dysfunction. Briana's relationships with the fathers of her children have been marked by instability and disappointment. Custody battles, communication breakdowns, emotional outbursts. These have been recurring themes in her story. And with age comes insight. Now in her late 20s, Briana appears to be reckoning with the patterns of her past and the possible trajectory of her future. By saying she wants her tubes tied, she's not rejecting motherhood. She's saying she doesn't want to gamble with the possibility of another child being born into an unstable dynamic. The idea of choosing sterilization is deeply personal and often fraught with emotion. For someone as young as Briana, it also invites controversy. Some will argue she's too young to make such a permanent decision. Others will applaud her maturity in acknowledging her limits. But at the heart of this conversation is a woman who is exhausted not just physically, but emotionally. Exhausted from trying to make things work with partners who don't show up. Exhausted from bearing the emotional labor of raising children essentially on her own. Exhausted from defending herself against public opinion while quietly wrestling with her own regrets and dreams. It's important to note that Briana isn't alone in feeling this way. There is a whole generation of young women, many of them mothers, who are coming to terms with the limitations of their circumstances. They've been sold the idea that motherhood is the pinnacle of feminine fulfillment, yet their lived experiences often look very different from the idealized narrative. They're struggling with childcare, finances, co-parenting challenges, and societal expectations. The decision to prevent future pregnancies isn't always about rejecting motherhood. Sometimes it's about protecting oneself and one's existing children from more instability. Briana's story also taps into the broader conversation about reproductive autonomy. Women have the right to make choices about their bodies, including the right not to have more children. But it becomes complicated when those decisions are driven not solely by personal desire, but by systemic failures in family support structures, mental health care, education, and the broader safety net meant to support parents. When a woman says she wants her tubes tied because she doesn't want to risk raising another child in a broken home, it's a societal red flag. It tells us that the support system has failed her and continues to fail so many others. Yet there is a quiet power in Briana's resolve. She's not waiting for someone else to fix the system. She's making the best decision she can with the resources and understanding she has. It's an act of self-awareness that should be respected, even if it sparks debate. There's nothing reckless about wanting to break a cycle. There's nothing immature about knowing your limits. And there's nothing more maternal, arguably, than choosing to protect your children from potential harm, even if that means not having more. This conversation also requires empathy. For every judgmental comment online, there's a woman nodding in silent agreement. There are countless mothers who, like Briana, are doing everything in their power to provide for their children in the absence of a supportive partner. They are navigating school drop-offs, doctor appointments, financial strain, and emotional turbulence alone. For many of them, the idea of bringing another child into the mix feels impossible. Not because they don't want more love in their lives, but because they know how thinly stretched they already are. There's also the question of healing. For Briana, part of this decision may be tied to unhealed trauma, not just from her romantic relationships, but from childhood, from fame, from scrutiny. Healing is nonlinear. It's often messy and unfinished. Sometimes it takes the form of saying no more, not out of fear, but out of a desire for peace. We don't know all the details of Briana's inner world, but we can infer from her public life that she's been through enough to know what she doesn't want. And then there's the matter of legacy. Every parent, consciously or not, thinks about the kind of life they're shaping for their children. Briana's daughters are growing up in a different world than she did, one where social media amplifies everything, where privacy is scarce, and where the line between personal and public is constantly blurred. By choosing not to have more children, Briana may be trying to pour everything she has into the two she already has, to give them stability, attention, and opportunities she may not be able to offer if she were stretched even thinner. It's a nuanced, emotional topic, one that intersects with race, class, gender, and fame. As a Latina woman who has grown up on reality TV, Briana's story carries layers of cultural complexity. She's not just a mother, she's a representation of so many young women who come from marginalized backgrounds and are doing their best to rewrite their narrative. The fact that she's using her platform to speak openly about reproductive choices is significant. It invites dialogue. It encourages honesty. It gives permission to others to feel what they feel without shame. Of course, there are those who will accuse Briana of being dramatic or attention-seeking. That's the cost of visibility in today's media landscape. But beneath the clickbait headlines and judgmental commentary is a woman who is trying to survive and thrive on her own terms. Her words might sound blunt, but they come from a place of reflection. She knows what it takes to raise a child well. She knows the emotional and financial cost of doing it alone. And she knows that hope, while beautiful, is not a parenting plan. Her desire to get her tubes tied isn't about giving up, it's about drawing boundaries. It's about reclaiming agency in a world that has often tried to write her story for her. Whether she ultimately goes through with the procedure or changes her mind later, the fact that she's even thinking about it speaks volumes. It tells us that she's thinking long-term. She's thinking about emotional sustainability. She's thinking about what she can realistically handle without compromising the well-being of herself or her daughters. In the end, Briana DeJesus is not just a reality TV personality. She is a mother, a woman, and a symbol of modern parenting under pressure. Her story is far from perfect, but it's honest. And in a world full of curated images and filtered lives, that honesty is rare and necessary. Her willingness to be vulnerable about her struggles, to make hard decisions in the name of protecting her peace, is something more of us could learn from. The journey of breaking generational cycles is not glamorous. It's often painful, filled with moments of self-doubt and societal backlash. But it's also powerful. Every time a woman like Briana chooses to reflect instead of react, to heal instead of hurt, to stop instead of spiral, she's rewriting the narrative for herself and her children. No one knows what the future holds for Briana, but what she's made clear is that she's thinking carefully about it. She's no longer chasing the fairy tale. She's building something real with what she has for the people who matter most. And sometimes, that kind of love, the one that sets boundaries, says no and chooses stability over sentiment, is the deepest love of all.